All right, back from the break. I'm talking about that thing there, the hi-hat, and how important it is. Now, I've talked about lots of other things. I'm going to go a little bit off the planet now. One of the things when you're playing extremely sort of polyrhythmic music and all this sort of stuff, and one of the things in jazz and all of that sort of stuff, you can get quite out there and all that. But a common thing is said, leave the hi-hat for the rest of the band. And to a certain degree, that sort of works and stuff. Although I have to say that one of my favourite drummers is Jack DeJohnette, and he didn't leave anything for anyone. John Abercrombie, the famous jazz guitarist, is very famous for a quote about Jack DeJohnette saying, "Jack has a fantastic beat, if you can find it." He's a little bit cruel, but they're good friends, I'm sure. There was a bit of friendly banter, at least I hope so. So when you're talking about Jack DeJohnette, you're starting to talk about complete four-way independence. So you might be going... Can you hear the beat? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. There's something there for you. And notice that the hi-hat had a mind of its own. But when you start to go into other things like polyrhythmic stuff, a la some of the stuff that Frank Zappa did, Black Page, things like that, all of that. Not that it's written up on the score, but when Terry Bozzio did it live and all that, in the background you would hear. So you can get right out there, but as long as you can still... Now this is quite out there, but I'm hoping you can still get some focus from the hi-hat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Something there, you see, because what you do is when you're getting into, say, that sounds like I'm warming up. It sounds like practice. Falling downstairs, as one person said to me once, and then I let him have it. You know, it's, whatever. Music like this exists in the world of classical percussion, and Frank Zappa. I keep mentioning Dream Theater because of prog metal and all this sort of business. These odd timings and these polyrhythmic factors come in all the way back to prog rock in the 70s. I mean, given that Yes, the very famous band Yes, their walk-on music was Stravinsky's Firebird Suite. It happens on Yes Songs, their live album from the early 70s, in a day when people could not believe that they could do what they did on stage, if you know what I mean, sort of thing. And yeah, it's quite amazing stuff because what happens with this is so much stuff that sounds really weird and all this sort of stuff can actually come from just simply two simple things together. Now that's all well and good, you see, because I could do, say, a 3 against 2 polyrhythm. So, that's just doing that. This is dun na 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 ba da 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 da, so on. It goes like that. But when you put the two together, people think, what the, and all this sort of stuff. So one of the things that can start to happen is this, with this odd business, if you're playing in odd times like fives or sevens or whatever, and then you're relating it back to another thing, it's the hi-hat for focus. You actually get the main underpinning there, and you can go off and do other things, but people have still got something to hold on to. Now that doesn't always happen, you know, like when you're talking about classical percussion, there's no one person just hitting out on a cowbell or anything like that. It is what it is, you know, sort of thing. And we hear it a lot in movie soundtracks. You know, you'll have a theme, you know, think Jaws. Bum, 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 bum. You know, the shark's coming. And then that's the chick in the bikini. Swimming, I'm so happy. Bum, 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 bum. Munch, munch, munch. Two separate themes intersect, munch, munch, right? So what happens is that the Jaws theme might be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then the lady theme might be going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, swimming so casually. Munch, 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 munch. What you've got is polymetrics, where you've got two separate time signatures being used against each other because one theme meshes with another. Oof, there you go. Now we usually see that as a cross rhythm, which gets used all the time, and I did a show on it the other week. But what happens is, how do you focus the cross rhythm? The hi-hat. Beautiful. So there you go. So that's something about the hi-hat there and how you can do it. But just to finish off this little bit of a show on focusing on the hi-hat, you can do other things with it. Now, I just want to relate what I did last segment, is the constant quavers and the naturally occurring hi-hat, where you might have, and then every time you put the left hand on the hi-hat, well, we can start to get into some of these polymetrics. This is something Billy Cobham does with his drum kit. He's got a wonderful setup. He does it a little bit different to me. Like he has his tom. They're not in a descending order. He has a higher tom there and a lower tom here at times, and all sorts of things. But one of the things I noticed him doing when he was filming, you know, because I got behind him, he let me literally put my camera underneath his armpits while I was playing. I should put some of that footage on up, shouldn't I? Okay, I'll get it. But what goes on is that I saw plainly he was working angles. Like it might be 3 here and 4 there and all that sort of stuff. Now when you're actually doing things like that, it's really quite interesting, especially when you add in a hi-hat. Let's, for argument's sake, take a triangle. Okay, snare, hi-hat, tom. Yeah? Yeah? Get it? Four with the right, 3 with the left. Now if I turn the snares on, what happens is that the snare drum is no longer another tom-tom, it's a snare drum, right? Now I'm going to do the same thing. Four. Now all of a sudden there's something happening here. Ba 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 da ba da ba 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 da ba da ba ba ba. Ba da ba, ba-da, ba-da, ba-ba-ra. Get it? So I'll leave you with that. That's a little bit of a conundrum there, isn't it? I was essentially doing 3 between the snare, the hi-hat, and tom 1, and I was doing a square 4 with the snare, tom 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Now, what happens with that? You're playing a polymeter of 3 with 4. Common denominator is 12. 3 times 4 is 12. So you could say that I was playing in 12/8 if you wanted to, and all that. But within that, by turning the snares on, I got this other little thing that was coming around, which I was sort of but-up, but-up, something the bass player could lock into or something, and you're starting to get into some very complex ideas there. So I hope you get something out of the show. It's centered in on the hi-hat, but then it got a little bit different, a little bit all around the place. I've mentioned as many drummers as I could. Please look them up. Please listen to them. Please love them. And all that. They just want to be loved. And yeah, I'll see you next week. This is The Drum Show. My name's Chris Quinlan. I hope you liked the idea of what I'm talking about, where I started with the hi-hat, and as I said, I've been a little bit different. Okay. See you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.